Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I'm very excited to introduce our new product, Olesco, to you. But first I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Cristina Burgart. I am the technical consultant for Chrysal USA. If at any moment you feel like you need to send me a quick email, please do. We'd love to hear from you. My contact information is provided at the end of the presentation. So as you know, Chrysal is a leader in the cut flower food industry, and with our passion for the beauty of flowers and plants, and with the extensive knowledge of Syngenta flowers, together we have developed a solution to keep flowering plants looking fresher longer post-harvest. Olesco is a foliar spray that helps defend against ethylene damage. More blooms at retail leads to more sales of top quality plants. In this presentation, I'm going to explain some of the technical information regarding Olesco, such as the benefits for ethylene sensitive crops and how to safely use this product. So why are we talking about ethylene? Well, ethylene is a hormone produced by plants during periods of stress. And as we know, plants leaving the grower are often subject to high levels of stress. In transit, they're crammed on a rack in a truck for days. Once they're at retail, they're usually subject to less than ideal conditions, such as extended periods of drought. And what happens in this situation is that what was a high quality plant decreases in quality pretty quickly, and oftentimes plants will have fewer blooms and they'll have lower leaf yellowing, and the color and health of the plant is what drives consumer purchases and sales. So stress is something we need to manage. Once a plant is on the retail floor, there's only a 3 to 4 day sales window before crop quality starts to decline. At this point, the quality of the plant is no longer acceptable to the consumer, and they're less likely to purchase the plant. This translates to about a 5% shrink in independent garden centers and 10 to 15% shrink in big box retailers. Some of the primary reasons for retail shrinkage are listed here. Most of them should look very familiar to you. But you'll notice that the number one reason is ethylene damage in these plants. And this usually looks like premature dropping of buds, flowers, and leaves. That's where Olesco is going to come into play. So here we took some data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to use as an example. With geraniums and petunias, we give an estimated 15% retail shrink. However, this we feel is a conservative approximation, so the shrink for you might be a little bit different. So geraniums and petunias are both considered ethylene sensitive crops. So these are the crops that will show those symptoms I mentioned previously. So with that 15% shrink, this costs about $16.3 million per year. That's about 7.7 million geraniums that did not get sold in 2016. Now, the average revenue loss per grower depends on the type of geranium, but that can be in the thousands of dollars, $9,000 to $12,000 for geraniums alone. And petunias, they're about a million pots or 3.7 million flats that went unsold. Again, with that 15% estimation. That translates to about $14.7 million annually. And that's somewhere around $17,000 total per grower. So what do we do about this plant quality issue at retail? Is there a way to prevent ethylene damage? Absolutely. Here at Chrysal, we have the solution. we've developed Olesco, which is a post-harvest product to prevent ethylene-sensitive crops through the use of a foliar spray before shipping. This helps avoid ethylene damage all the way through shipping and retail and at the consumer level. Ethylene can come from a number of sources. It can come from external sources such as fruit. It can come from other plants. It can come from the exhaust of the truck. There are a number of different places where ethylene can come from outside of the plant. Inside of the plant, stress from transport can be a big one. Imagine the life of a plant in the truck for a few days. You're crammed together with your other plants. You haven't seen the light of day in a few days. You haven't seen water either, for that matter, so quite a stressful time for these plants. So Syngenta's technical trialing team has trialed Olesco for us, and they've created some recommendations on how to use this product and with what crops. So pictured on the right, you'll see the results of one of these trials with the Syngenta Moxie geranium. And the plants on the left side of the image were the untreated control group. So these plants were the ones that went through the traditional plant production process, went through shipping, made it to retail, and this is the end result. The plants on the right received a spray of Chrysal Alesco 3.5 weeks prior to this image being taken. And one of the most obvious benefits that you can see here is, the size and vibrancy of the blooms. The Olesco has reduced the amount of flower petal shatter, so geraniums are notorious for that petal shatter once the flowers are fully opened. The buds that have emerged, they are no longer being aborted, so they develop into full blooms. Leaf yellowing is less of an issue as well. That's a symptom of ethylene damage in the plant. And the flowers that are already open, they enjoy a longer period of time staying nice and vibrant. So the Chrysal Alesco has the ability to increase the shelf life of plants by up to 3 weeks. And this depends mainly on the variety of plant being grown and sold, as well as the environmental conditions that these plants are subject to. So we've spoken primarily about geranium and petunia, not only because there's a huge amount of room for improvement in that retail shrink, but also because they are ethylene sensitive plants and they have this ability to benefit greatly from Olesco. Now, most plants have some level of ethylene sensitivity, but some are more sensitive than others. Those include the campanula, dahlia, dianthus, hibiscus, lobelia, pansy, rose, schlumbergera, and viola. The Syngenta trialing process includes simulated shipping with standards designed to be as realistic as possible. So you can see in the pictures that the plants were on carts and wrapped in plastic before being placed in the simulated shipping environment. And this environment, the plants are exposed to high humidity, 95%, no light, and they're at about 67 degrees Fahrenheit during the shipping period. Pinto Premium is a series of seed geraniums bred by Syngenta, and of course they would include them in their research trials because geraniums are exceptionally ethylene sensitive. So in these trials, it's the rose bicolor geranium that were tested. These pictures were taken 4 days after an Olesco application. So what happened, the plants were sprayed with the Olesco 2 days before a simulated shipping. Now, it's exceptionally important to get the timing of the Olesco application right. So these were sprayed right as one umbel was open and another one was budding. This is because you don't want the buds to be too mature and they start senescing on their own. So here on the left picture, this is a plant that was not treated with Olesco. This is the traditional production protocol. And 2 days after that simulated shipping, you're already starting to see that petal shatter that geraniums are famous for. Now, the ones on the right did receive an Olesco application, and those umbels are still intact. No petal shatter with the Olesco treated geraniums. Fast forward about 2 weeks after the Olesco application. These are the same plants, but the differences between the two treatment groups are even bigger. So before we were just having a petal shatter, but now we are actually having a full-on bud abortion in the untreated control group. Now this is a symptom of ethylene damage in geraniums. So what will happen is the new buds, as they go developing, they'll actually die and not open into full colorful umbels. So what you'll see is a plant covered in umbels whose petals have shattered, and you won't see any new umbels coming out. Versus the Olesco treated plant, the petals are not dropping as you would normally expect on the fully opened and aging umbels. The petals will just dry out on the plant, which is quite nice because even though they're drying, they still contribute to the color and value of that plant. So this is some more of the trial results with Syngenta geraniums. This is another seed geranium, except this is Maverick Scarlet Picotee. We continue to see some of the same great benefits of using Olesco. You see reduced petal shatter and bud abortion, which is why the plants on the right with the Olesco treatment have that color, that vibrancy of healthy blooms compared to the control group that's suffering from ethylene damage. You also have more green foliage with the Olesco treated plants because leaf yellowing, that chlorosis, that is a symptom of ethylene damage in the plant. Now, because of all of this quality improvement in the plant in blooms and foliage, now you have an increased retail shelf life up to 3 weeks greater than without the Olesco. And this, of course, is dependent upon environmental conditions as well, but like I said, up to 3 weeks improvement. That's great. Another species of bedding plant that greatly benefits from Olesco application is Petunia. The one shown here, tested by Syngenta, was their Deco Sky Blue Petunia. And Petunia, anyone who's grown them knows that they're famous for this flower meltdown. Now, this flower meltdown is actually a symptom of ethylene damage. So with the Olesco treatment, the buds actually stay intact, no bud abortion, and you don't really see any of that flower meltdown that's traditionally seen with Petunia. Now, this is fantastic for a number of reasons, not just color, because you have more flowers, but you also are reducing the number of entry points for botrytis, which is an infection of that dead tissue in the flowers, which can spread to healthy tissue in the plant and lead to the decline of the Petunia. So having healthy flowers is good for the overall health of the plant in the long term. So these pictures were taken 18 days after the Olesco application, so about 2.5 weeks later. And you're seeing serious differences between the plants treated with the Olesco and those that were not. Petunia were also tested by the R&D department at Battlefield Farms, and here we see that they too had great success with Olesco and Petunia. The Olesco did not show any symptoms of phytotoxicity on the varieties tested, and it also improved the quality of the plants after harsh shipping conditions. Oftentimes this has to do with extreme fluctuations in temperature and things like that. So Travis from R&D at Battlefield, he says here, I would recommend applying Chrysal Alesco at the labeled rate on product that usually has shipping damage and results in credits. So Olesco definitely helps improve the quality of Petunia after shipping. Lobelia are another type of bedding plant that are ethylene sensitive and thus greatly benefit from an Olesco spray application a few days before shipping. Here we have a variety of Lobelia bred by Syngenta, Techno Heat Upright Dark Blue. And looking at the picture on the bottom, this picture was taken 11 days after the Olesco application, and you're already seeing huge differences here between those that got the Olesco spray and those that did not. Primarily, the plants on the right, they have more color to them because the flowers are lasting longer and the buds are not aborting. We also were able to see benefits for up to 3 weeks after the application, so we're seeing a general trend here among the ethylene sensitive crops, Lobelia included. Here we have another variety of Syngenta Lobelia that was tested with Olesco. We have similar results here with extended flower life and reduced bud abortion with the Olesco treatment. There was also an added benefit, it looked like, with the Olesco treatment, and that was that the plant was less leggy and more compact compared to the plant that did not get that Olesco treatment. And these benefits were observed for up to 3 weeks after the plants were sprayed, but the picture shown is taken 1 week after the Olesco application. So this would be what it would look like in the garden center. Chrysal tested Olesco on hibiscus and saw some big benefits with bud abortion and flower longevity here as well. Campanula are very sensitive to ethylene. That's why Chrysal decided to test Olesco on Campanula and Bella Purple. Here we have pictures of the results 11 days after an Olesco spray treatment. In general, the Campanula treated with Olesco had more blooms to them, more color, and these plants were generally more marketable than the plants that did not receive an Olesco spray before shipping. These are some of the other crops that Syngenta tested during their Olesco trials. The Dahlia on the left, you'll notice the ones that did not get sprayed with Olesco, they had more petal shatter, and the blue arrows in the leftmost picture indicate, all the petals falling off of those flowers that did not get treated. The ones that were sprayed with Olesco also had a prolonged flower life. Syngenta also tested pansies, which are moderately ethylene sensitive, but they still benefit from an Olesco spray. The ones that were sprayed had prolonged flower life, their bud delay was reduced, and these benefits were observed for a period of at least 1 week. As a general rule of thumb, the more ethylene sensitive a particular crop is, the greater the benefit of using Chrysal Alesco. Here we have an extended plant list, including different varieties that we recommend using with Chrysal Alesco. Many of them we covered in today's webinar, but they include Geranium, Petunia, Lobelia, Dianthus, Campanula, Phlox, and Schlumbergera. With these plants, after they're treated with Olesco, you have longer lasting flowers and less bud abortion, which leads to greater flower power and more sales. Now that we've discussed the benefits of using Chrysal Alesco to the plants themselves, we can talk about the cost benefit of using this product. One 200 milliliter bottle costs $85 and is enough to spray 1 acre of crop. For a quick calculation, if this 1 acre includes 200,000 quart-sized pots, and each pot costs the grower $2 to produce, then 1 bottle of Olesco can ensure about $400,000 worth of crop per acre. With an application cost of less than a penny per plant, Olesco is a highly cost-effective insurance policy to help increase shelf life at retail and to improve sell-through because the plant has better blooms and is better quality overall. In general, I like to think that Olesco is a preventative product because you know that the plants are going to be exposed to ethylene at some point during shipping or at retail, so you definitely need to ensure those plants, make sure that they maintain their quality. Chrysal Alesco is currently registered at the EPA and in 30 states in the U.S. These states represent some of the bigger producers of bedding plants, but additional registration is being added depending on the demand. Feel free to contact us at Chrysal USA for more info. The registration process takes 4 to 8 weeks, but again, depending on the situation, it may be registered in more states in the future. The active ingredient in Chrysal Alesco is silver nitrate, which is also known as STS. Olesco is formulated to be easily mixed with water, so you don't need to be adding a wetting agent. The dosage is 1 milliliter per liter in a spray. This is really convenient because the 200 milliliter bottle is already measured for a 50-gallon tank, and this will spray about 1 acre, so super convenient dosage there. The spray timing is actually one of the most important factors in using Olesco. You want to apply it a couple days before shipping. Basically, you want to give it time to absorb within the plant, so that way by the time it's shipping, it's already got that ethylene protection. We do see benefits for up to 2 weeks. However, 2 days before shipping should be sufficient. Also, when you're spraying, you want to spray just before runoff, just to get nice even coverage, but you don't want any of that product dripping onto the ground. When you are spraying, make sure that the plants are not in direct sunlight. Make sure the leaves dry before any direct sun. The solution can be used for up to 3 days after mixing, but good practice, don't mix your old solution with your new solution. Keep them separate. 4-hour re-entry interval, nice and short. And as always, please make sure you read the label before you use Chrysal Alesco for the full instructions on how to apply. As with any other product that you spray in the greenhouse, it's a good idea to only mix what you need so that way you avoid having leftover solution after application. When you are spraying, make sure that you spray on fully grown plants that fully cover the ground. You want to avoid runoff of this product. You want to avoid getting it onto that ground surface. So try to keep the product on the plants. Any leftover solution that you have, you need to make sure that you collect it and you recover the silver using the procedure on the label on the bottle. This recovered silver needs to be disposed of as chemical waste. So good advice, just continue to use the same container when you have leftover solution, so that way when you do have that silver disposed of, it's all in one place. As I mentioned earlier, Olesco comes in 200 milliliter bottles that cost $85 each. Currently, the cartons contain 6 bottles. When you do buy the Olesco, make sure that you store it in cool, dark conditions, if possible between 41 and 77 degrees. It can stay there for about 18 months if it's sealed and stored properly. So how does Olesco compare to other anti-ethylene products, such as 1-MCP? So the active ingredient in Olesco is STS, and in general, this active ingredient is proven to provide long-term protection against ethylene damage. It acts by binding to ethylene receptors in the plant, which hinders the plant's ability to detect and respond to the hormone. However, unlike 1-MCP, it doesn't need to be reapplied in order to have long-lasting effects. This is because STS can translocate within the plant. So as the plant grows, it provides more ethylene receptors, and the STS in the tissue will bind to the new receptors and continue to provide protection against the ethylene. With 1-MCP, if the plant grows, you would have to continuously apply it to bind with the new receptors. STS can provide up to 2 weeks of coverage and doesn't need to be applied in confined spaces since it isn't a gas. 1-MCP needs to be applied in an enclosed space. So this news about STS in the greenhouse is great news because you can spray it in an open air environment and you can do it at a low cost. Since Chrysal and Syngenta Flowers have teamed up to promote and create Olesco, you will have the technical support from both companies. You'll also have an abundance of supporting materials. You'll have the frequently asked questions page on the website, product sheets with technical information. You'll also have broker sales flyers and the beneficial crop list that will be continuously updated that I showed you earlier during the webinar. Technical support through Chrysal USA will be provided by myself and my technical team. I'm one of their technical consultants. Feel free to email me at cburgart@chrysalusa.com. Also, a huge thanks to our collaborative team at Syngenta Flowers. Allison Carlson specifically, she's the technical manager. She helped me develop this webinar for you today. If you have any questions, please go to chrysal.com and search for Olesco. You may also email me at cburgart@chrysalusa.com.